I'm going to begin, guys, by asking, when first posed with the idea of making this film, but did you have any apprehensions? Were you quite kind of keen to get involved from the offset?
I had a few apprehensions, actually. First of all, I wasn't under contract to make another Star Trek film, and there was another project that I really wanted to do. And it was that much further advanced in the pre-production process. But then we got the call that this Star Trek was going to be made, and so I had a conversation with Justin, and when he kind of outlined his vision, not only for my character, but for the entire story, I decided that I really wanted to be a part of it. And as soon as I got to Vancouver and caught up with these guys again, I realized what a massive mistake it would have been not to be a part of it. So yeah, what about you?
I guess when I first heard that it was going on, that it might happen, I was just worried that I knew JJ wasn't going to be directing. That it was who's going to write it, who's going to direct it, and then with an ensemble cast, you're just worried that that you're going to be taken care of, and you're going to get a nice storyline, and we become stewards of these characters, and you become attached to them, so you just there's a lot of variables, obviously in making one of these movies, and I was nervous that we'd get it right.
And because when it was announced that sort of JJ wasn't going to be on board, obviously that you instantly think, oh, that's not a good sign. But actually, as an actor, is it quite nice to have a new director with a new vision, kind of injecting a whole new approach into this?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was certainly the case here. I really loved working with Justin, and he brought in, a fresh energy and a subtly new take. He was able to build upon what JJ had established. But, Justin's a long-term fan of Star Trek, and he gets it. He gets the archetypes. He gets how the characters interact and relate to each other. And he was able to, I think, successfully collaborate with Simon and Doug, our writers, and really deliver something that not only sort of respects the 50 years of Star Trek that have come before, but also mines new territory. And I think that's so vitally important for the franchise going forward.
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act for this new director, because for a new director in a series, because it's like you could play it safe and make something, try to copy what's come before you, and you might do a disservice to the actors and to the fans if you were to aggressively try to make something that didn't resemble the other films. And so but he did it very gracefully, I thought. Yeah.
And you mentioned Simon Pegg's obviously on screenwriting duties. When finding that out, did you kind of have a little word with him, just say, if you could put in a little monologue for me, or did you have to be extra nice to him over the course of production just so he didn't kill you off?
Yeah, it was a real boon having Simon in that role. Felt like that the inmates had taken over the asylum a little bit. He emailed us an early draft of the script and said, look, here it is, and he was quite nervous about doing it. And he said, if you have any ideas, if there's anything, any direction you'd like to go in, please let me know. And I think all of us collectively did, email him with thoughts and suggestions about our characters, and that was the beginning of a wonderfully collaborative process that continued right throughout filming. We're constantly working to take the material to the next level and make it as a richer and rewarding experience as we could.
And because obviously one of the big changes you made, obviously Sulu is openly gay now in this feature, and I was wondering, John, was that something that was quite a surprise to you when you first received the screenplay, or had you actually kind of considered his sort of sexuality before that?
It was a surprise. I'd assumed he was straight. In the other timeline, Sulu has a relationship with a woman and has a daughter. So I was surprised. I was worried. I was concerned about George's reaction. I was concerned that people might not appreciate change in this timeline to Sulu's character. But then on the other hand, I recognized it was an opportunity to say something beautiful. So it was a risk, I thought.
But vitally, it's not a plot device. It just is what it is. I mean, was that quite important to you? That because in a way that's more progressive, that it's not kind of commented on, or it's not.
Yeah. I think the attitude is more progressive and more important and more impressive than the fact of his sexuality, and the way it's handled is. I mean, if you didn't know it was an issue, it wouldn't be an issue. Watching the movie, there's no close up, there's no music cue. It is what it is.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, I think the important thing is that the character's not defined by his sexuality; it's part of who he is.
Yeah.
But I mean,
he's defined by his great hair.
Yeah.
and his swordsmanship.
But I mean, it's emblematic though of a franchise that has always had. It's very cheap. But that in itself is emblematic of a kind of a franchise that has always had an overriding message of just equality and obviously people coming together to kind of join forces for the greater good. I mean, do you think this film, particularly at the moment, is about as relevant as it could be? Because it feels like it's really coming out at a time when we need something of this nature.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there's a lot of change going on at the moment, not just here in the UK, but we've got an election coming up in the States, and.
Really.
Yeah, and this vision of Roddenberry presents sort of like an ideal look at humanity operating at its very best, where we have overcome our differences, where we're not warring with each other, we're not persecuting, we're looking after the environment, and we are together in unity out there in the spirit of exploration. And I think that. It's an ideal that is a beacon. It's a lighthouse, and it's something that I think that audiences are going to latch onto.
So it's the 50th anniversary, and it just does feel also like suddenly, especially in America, it feels like this a repeat of a very tumultuous era that in American history, that spawned Star Trek in the first place. That we were. Coming out of the political nuttiness of the 60s, and we're here now, all the stuff that's going on in Dallas and with the election, and it does feel like we're focusing, that all this stuff is focusing on how different we are, the differences in groups, and what's heartening about Star Trek is that, its ideal is that we have more in common than we do than we don't have in common. So it couldn't hurt to think about these things.
But I mean, that sort of being said, I mean, the group in this film are kind of fractured. I mean, they're all kind of separated into different sort of couplings, or sort of paired off. Is it quite odd, because obviously you're all here kind of promoting the film together, but did it feel like at times you weren't making the same movie, if that makes sense? Because I guess there must have been a few days or weeks where you didn't see a lot of each other.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. We would get together for dinner, and we'd be like, what have you guys been doing? Catching up on each other's personal lives, but also like the work.
Does that make it more enjoyable to watch? Because obviously there's so many scenes that you weren't watching on set that you get to see it as an audience member.
Yeah, it is. We saw it for the first time in Sydney, and it was really wonderful to see everybody's contribution to the film. And for us, obviously, it was particularly poignant and bittersweet because of the loss of our dear friend and family member Anton.
I was really loving watching, just like, that's what Anton was doing.
Yeah,
and so it was fun.
And I mean, sort of mentioned before that, I mean, this film, it does feel like it is quite, in the tone is quite similar to the original kind of Star Trek movie series in a very kind of affectionate way. Is that something that sort of leapt off the page when you first read the screenplay, or do you think that's kind of added in post-production, whether that's kind of established?
I think it was on the page.
I think so, yeah. I got that
I think it was,
immediately.
John was saying before, I think it was a pretty bold move to start the film with essentially a crew that was fatigued and over the serialized nature of their job. I think it was a really interesting way to start the film, and then of course to rocket it into this fast-paced, character-driven action spectacle. Yeah.
And I mean, but I was wondering, now you've been involved in this franchise now for 3 movies. I mean, when you're dealing with quite an established, expectant fan base, is there a kind of added pressure, and is that something that's kind of been alleviated now, or do you still feel that there's such a passionate group of people that you need to kind of impress?
I feel like that's more for the filmmakers and not for the actors. because we can blame them, right? We can deflect the blame.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know what? It's a high-pressure job, and you know, I certainly don't think we're doing ourselves any favour to be thinking about the reception of it while we're making it.
Yeah.
You know, the onus is on us to do our job, to get on set and to be the best we can be, and to present the most developed version of the character we can, and through the process to continue to strive to make it as good as it can be, and that's our job. But the rest of it's in other people's hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,